which is on the National Government Constituency Development Fund. The National Assembly, like I told you, has been conducting sessions. Gitonga Mukunji, let me begin with you on this one. Why is it that we must keep the NGCDF despite several judgments coming from the courts saying that it is unconstitutional? And what are the chances of success this time?
I want to say that some NGCDF, National Government Constituency Development Fund, is a fund under siege. And the reason why it is under siege is because of a number of interests around that fund. First, this is not a fund that was established after the new constitution. It is a fund that has been there now for close to 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it is a fund that really targets very specific sectors of our development. And it's devolved under the constituency level. Mm-hmm. The rulings of the court, which we have got to acknowledge, really are also devoid of the fact that this fund is already a fund that is well utilized and used in the constituency level. They look at the legal part, and clearly that is why members of parliament are working so hard to ensure that we ensure whatever is not aligning with the constitution of Kenya really aligned. But I will say this, Sam, and this is my belief. Mm-hmm. In Kenya, we have a way of undoing things that are working for us. We have a way of doing things, trying to reinvent the wheel, whereas there are things that we can say that needs to be supported.
Right.
NGCDF is a fund that has actually been very impactful. Only 5% of NGCDF fund is used for administration purposes. Yeah. Only 5%. That means out of the 58 billion normally in the budget or thereabout, a very small amount of money is used to manage CDF, and the rest goes directly to do projects that are very visible on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I believe, yes, we talk about devolution, but one of the challenges that was brought in by devolution is the fact that we devolved jobs, powers, but on matters development, we really did not do much on the devolvement of that. Mm-hmm. Almost close to all counties are using close to 80% of the money that is devolved to them for recurrent expenditures and salaries. So it tells you, you 80%. Would go... Yes, almost
that 80%. Would be illegal because...
It is absolutely illegal, but they can do nothing about it. Actually, I'll give you an example of Embu. Embu does not do more than 2 billion Kenya shillings on their development budget.
And what is the total budget?
It goes around 7.2 billion. So it tells you that we have a challenge that really NGCDF comes and solves and curbs immediately. Right. So I propose that while we are looking on how to ensure NGCDF does not go away, we also need to ensure it is legalized. I know we have been working very hard in the National Assembly, but I believe there is also an appeal case that is ongoing to ensure that NGCDF does not go anywhere. Last Friday, and you know, Sam, what has happened to our since we got into the JSS is there has been lack of infrastructure in all schools on matters to do with rolling out the CBC program. Yeah. In Manyata constituency, we rolled out laboratories, mobile laboratories, to all the schools. We know the challenges we have with capitation. Capitation in schools cannot even ensure that we have anything that can work and ensure that our students learn and are able to get what is supposed to be gotten. But the NGCDF really has done a lot to ensure that these things come.
Okay.
But so my point is very clear that we have to align and ensure we align with the law, but we cannot reinvent the wheel and say, trash this, let's start afresh. We did that with SHA.
Yeah.
We have had a lot of problems. Because when we say we are trashing this and starting a new thing, there is always a serious gap that.
All right. I hear much more.
The new funding model in the university that we have adopted is without piloting is actually another crisis. Because you find that now many universities, by the time we get to next year, we will need 350 billion to sustain the new funding model.
Okay, just hold it there. I'll get to you, Chairman. But Senator Onyonka, you've been at the National Assembly and now at the Senate. You've managed CDF, now you're not. And all these arguments and judgments that have come from the courts are that there has to be a distinction of roles, that Parliament is supposed to be the legislative house. And because of that, there has been several amendments to remove the role of a member of Parliament. I think the latest one was about 2023.
2023, yes.
Right.
The last of the amendments we did.
Yeah. So, Senator, is it even possible that you can entrench into the Constitution something that has been found to be unconstitutional by different courts?
No. What you see my colleagues doing is basically do what I call a band-aid approach to constitutionalism. The reality is that by you accepting that CDF should remain in the structure of administration that we have, the reality of it is that you are changing the very DNA, the very structure of our administration. Let me give you an example, Sami. Members of Parliament are supposed to conduct certain functions. The drafters of the Constitution, and in fact, according to the interpretation of the court, and that includes the Supreme Court, is that if you agree, and it doesn't matter what you call it, it doesn't matter how you dress it, it doesn't matter how you shape it, if you agree that money is going to be allocated to a member of Parliament, which then he has a hand in administering and managing, the reality is that then you change that structure. Let me give you an example why. Then it means let the women rep also be given money, which she gets. Then it means allow the senator to also get the money, which he doesn't get and which we don't want anyway. And allow the member of the county assembly to also get that money. So in other words, what we are talking about is this. Let us look for another way on how we are going to oversight ourselves. All right, from now on, let us agree that politicians are going to be running kitties. This kitties is what makes them sustain and keep themselves in office. This kitty is the one which has made it impossible for the legislature to actually oversight the executive. Why? Because normally it is the executive which comes out with the budget. When the executive comes out with that budget, if the executive wants anything, including wanting to hide the seal, all right, and you go and pass it quietly, maybe as an omnibus bill. The reality for that is that there is a quid pro quo that is agreed. MPs are going to be given a certain amount of money to do roads. MPs are going to be given a certain amount of money to go and give for quote-unquote bursaries. We are saying all these things must be collapsed and let us take them to the county. And you see, let me explain to my brothers, including my brother that I really admire because he's been a friend of mine and he's a young politician. We are not saying we collapse CDF. We are saying let's domicile it at the county. If you want to oversight it when it's at the county. I'll give you an example.
But what function should that money be used on?
Let me give you an example. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, if you take the total amount, which is 45, how much? 45 billion shillings, isn't it? Which is what CDF is basically given. Add more for the women rep. How much are you giving the women rep? It's about 200 million times, how many are they? 47. You're talking about another 3 billion. So the total amount of money that you are looking at, if you look at the CDF amount, what we are saying is very simple. Can we agree what to do with our roads? Can we classify our roads properly so that we decide that all roads, because after all, otherwise, other than the Kenya National Highway Authorities, can we domicile all our roads at the county government? Because the county is the engine of development and growth at the local level. But I'm not saying that you remove the member of parliament from playing a role and even critical roles in making sure that if there are any functions that are needed to be performed or needed to be effected by the Member of Parliament, my argument is very simple. His role is purely oversight.
So
the role of me is oversight. The role of an MCA is oversight. The role of the women rep, her money should come to the county government where the money can be ring-fenced. The argument that, oh, this money is going to come to the governor and governors are thieves. MPs, we are as thievious as our governors. But when we go to the county government, we can all sit together and as a team. Remember, there was supposed to be the county board. There was something that was put which has never been effected. That is the place where we are supposed to sit as members of parliament, as members of the Senate, as members of the MCA, if need be, and the governor. And you discuss and agree. These roads are county roads. These ones are going to be done by the national government. These health facilities, they are up to level 4. These are actually hospitals that the county can manage. National level. In other words, the intergovernment relations between what you have right now
and what's to come. All right, Senator, I hear you. Chairman Murugara, so how will you do it? Is it possible? Because you remember the question of BBI.
Yeah.
There are some amendments that were proposed in the Constitution to create new constituencies. And I remember that time, members of Parliament who came to this show said, it may be unconstitutional now, but once you entrench it into the Constitution, it will be constitutional. Is that even a viable argument?
Two things. BBI, the biggest problem with BBI was how it was initiated. And that's why it fell by the wayside. The initiation was wrong from day one. And even the courts would not have sustained it, including initiating those constituencies. The whole was murky, and therefore it had to fall by the wayside. There are a few things my colleague Senator has said, which in my view are unconstitutional. We cannot move along that path because a member of parliament a member of the National Assembly would not find any place under the Constitution in the counties unless we want to change the Constitution so that we are able to say they have roles to play in the county. The county assemblies are under the county MCAs themselves. The senators are their oversight and the governors are the CEOs. Yes. We have no role in that. Now, number one, CDF, popularity. My committee was charged with the task of evaluating and collating the results of the constituencies, 290 constituencies. And soon the report is going to be tabled. The truth is we had over 98% acceptance for CDF. It is the only one that has visible development in the rural countryside, especially the countryside. CDF has nothing to do with the counties. It is national government revenue. Yes. And I hear senators talking about it, that it eats into the money of the counties. We have what is called division of revenue. We start with 8, whereby the counties get their share, the national government gets its share. From the national government share, CDF comes from there to go and do the core mandate of the national government in the constituencies. Therefore, there is no way you can marry the CDF with any of the county funds and the county functions. So when they say we take the money to the county, there is a bit of a lacuna there because there is no law that is going to support it. Number one. Number two, remember when CDF was started in the year 2000 and 2002, members of parliament...
Just 203, 204.
Yeah, 204. Yes. Members of parliament had a big role to play. Because that time, they thought it was a way of developing their constituencies. Eventually, the principle of separation of powers came into play, where it was said members of parliament are supposed to be oversight over the national government. Therefore, we have to separate the two. And this is why the National Assembly, even when Honorable Nyonka was there, he must have played a role in amending the laws from 2015 all the way to 2023. There have been successive amendments to remove the role of a member of parliament from the CDF. Today, as we speak, the member of parliament has no role whatsoever to play in the management of CDF.
Sami, why did Raila say that they are doing roads?
But if Raila says that Raila has said it is the law. Let's move on.
Mheshimiwa Murugara, please.
Let's move.
Mheshimiwa Murugara, don't fall for that. You are making an argument. Please finish.
Thank you. It flows like this. We have made successive amendments to remove the role of a member of parliament from CDF.
No.
And we have done it.
Yeah.
If there is any place where a member of parliament under the NGCDF Act has a role to play, I invite Honorable Onyonka to cite that section. We look at it now.
But do members of National Assembly actually have a role?
We have no role apart from oversight.
Sami, can I?
Apart
Can
from,
I come in?
just hold on,
Sorry.
Honorable. Apart from oversight,
Chairman,
there is no other
when we
role.
started the show, Mheshimiwa Mukunji told us that he, during recess, he was disbursing
Exactly.
resources for bursary.
Exactly.
During recess, some of your colleagues have been busy unveiling projects.
This is what we do. Oversight.
So that's oversighting.
Senator, please.
Giving bursary checks is oversighting.
Please,
Senator, please.
what stops the
Chairman.
president from issuing title?
Chairman.
No.
No. Chairman, let's finish.
Listen to me.
And Karibu Sana,
The reason-
Stephen Dishu, former Speaker of the Kiambu County
Honorable
Assembly.
Mukunji, what
Yeah.
he was doing was not wrong.
Yes.
Because CDF, which is anchored in the constituency, a constituency is cited by a member of parliament.
And that's
the reason.
part of the problem at the High Court, because they said a constituency is not a unit of service delivery.
Absolutely.
It is a unit for election.
So go for
Yes.
referendum.
To elect
Yes.
Let us go for
representatives
referendum.
of the people
Yes.
going to the
Yes.
National Assembly. But how do you
referendum.
cure that in the amendment you're proposing?
Because once it is entrenched in the constitution, it is now recognized as a center of development.
Negative.
All right? Once we do,
Doesn't that go against the constitutional?
it
Which has
cannot
got-
be against
which has got two centers of power.
It cannot go against the constitution.
There's two
because
centers of
number
power.
one,
Sorry.
number
National
one,
and county,
number
nothing
one,
else.
Sorry, Senator.
number one, the two centers are on separate governments.
No.
All right? Separate governments. This is the county government and the national government. Remember, the CDF is not going to go between the two of them. It goes to the national government. It's part of administration of the national government.
Which structure?
All right? The structure is going to be this way, Honorable Onyonka. It's going to be through the constitutional amendment, number one. Number two,
That's all
we have
fake.
national legislation that will govern our CDF.
That is all fake.
Okay.
That is all fake.
All right?
We go for referendum
That's okay,
for
Chairman.
you to change the structure of the
So
constitution.
can I finish?
We go for referendum. Let them bring a referendum.
Can I just finish? Because he is shouting further than
I'm not shouting, I'm just talking.
Then he will
Chairman,
not talk.
Chairman
I will also
Murugara.
shout at him.
Shout,
No,
shout.
Chairman Murugara.
I'm sorry.
Let's
I'm
not go
sorry
back
that,
there.
Let's go slowly and
I'm not
debate
shouting
like
at you.
let's debate like
Yes,
people who
please
have gone to
finish.
school.
30 seconds,
We are
Chairman.
learned,
Finish.
right?
30
It's
seconds.
not a question of being interrupted
finish.
every now.
Yeah.
So what we are saying is this: once it gets into the constitution, and constitution, you can amend it provided you use the right procedure. All right? The initiation is the most important.
So through the amendment process, you can make what is unconstitutional to be constitutional.
It cannot be unconstitutional because, number one, it's only unconstitutional when it contravenes.
Sami,
All right?
Sami.
And there's
It
already a
contravenes.
finding.
Sami.
Because the finding.
What did the Supreme Court rule? The fact that CDF exists completely distort the very structure of the Constitution. What we are saying is very simple. Let these people who believe that CDS is legit and is popular bring a referendum. Let's go for a referendum.
And I think we'll get there at some point.
Yes.
But Speaker,
Forget about
sorry,
these
let me hear
baggage
from
of fake things they are doing
Chairman,
at
let me
they
hear
are,
from,
they are holding public hearings when they're being given money to bribe voters to say,
Mheshimiwa
this thing is
Ndishu.
very good, it's very good.
All right, Senator. Mheshimiwa Ndishu,
We have become
Sorry, Sam.
charlatans.
I don't know
Sam,
if before you left
Is
Parliament,
this a
CDF was
political
there.
rally which you
No,
invited
it's
here
not.
for?
It's a
Just
constitutional.
charlatans.
We have one gentleman here who
Chairman.
is turning this into a political rally. We can also do
And I ask
political
you,
rallies.
don't be distracted.
Unfortunately.
Don't be distracted.
I thought we
Maybe-
came here to argue
Chairman.
on the basis of the law in a manner that shows we're going to school.
And that's what we're
But
doing.
Senator Onyonka is
Chairman, for a
shouting
referendum
and
vote.
throwing up.
Let's
his
go
Chairman,
for a
please hear
referendum.
me. That's how Senator chooses to express himself.
Thank you.
We will allow him his time, but Senator, please allow others to speak.
Yeah, to speak.
You know, I asked you so that I go. I don't know why you are
No, you will
wasting
not
my
go.
time here.
I told you not give up.
If we are wasting
give
his
up on Kenyans.
sorry, Sam.
No, don't
Does it
disrupt
require
me.
your permission to go?
Mheshimiwa
You should
Ndishu,
just walk out.
what do you make of
He doesn't
this?
like
I'm
it.
courteous enough
Story
to ask
about
for permission.
NGCDF.
You don't ask.
NCDF.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much, Sam. I must apologize for being late in this show that is very, very popular and everybody is watching it. I got some problem with the jam, but let me inform actually the honorable members here that I was in Parliament. I was among the people who actually structured the CDF before it became NGCDF.
Yes.
We did it with the honorable, the person who brought the motion was Mheshimiwa Muriuki Karue, member for Okalau. And I was there, and I was among the very small group that came up with the idea, or born the idea, why do we have to have a constituency development fund? And I would like to inform my fellow leaders here, as well as the nation, why we decided to come with the CDF. One, it was because we people who came from the opposition zones, we were discriminated by government. You could not get anything from government if you were from the opposition zone. There was no development, there was no money for roads, there was nothing. The little money we were having for Harambes was not even enough.
Yeah.
So we said, let's come up with a system or a structure that will all equalize the entire country by creating a fund that will go to every constituency legally, so to speak. And so when the motion came in the floor of the House, we were surprised that it got support from across the board, including the members of KANU then, and ourselves, because even some members of KANU were also crying the way we were crying. And therefore, that's how we came up with the CDF. And when it came now, it meant that there will be equal distribution of money to the constituencies. And so the money that I will get in my constituency of Juja, it will be the same amount of money like in Baringo Central, where the president came from. Or Kajiado North, where the Vice President Setoto came from. So we try to equalize and make sure that there is equity and equality in distribution of resources. However, two things happened. One, the law says that the MPs, and they are here, if you pass a law, touching them, they can't benefit from it. It is for posterity. So by the time I was finishing my term in Juja, we could, that crop of MPs, we could not now get the CDF to utilize it the way we wanted. It had to be.
When did you finish your term?
2002.
2002, okay.
Yeah, so the people who came after 2002 are the ones who benefited. And now, our idea was that we should be responsible in deciding, when money has now come to Juja constituency, which road is bad.
Correct.
Which school needs to be uplifted?
Yeah.
Which place needs to be connected with water? Which place needs to be connected with electricity, stuff like that. But we realized that there was a problem. And this is what now the honorable members are arguing about, on whether, as member of parliament, what's your role?
Yeah.
Is it to get the money and go literally and do the roads, do the schools, electricity, water, stuff like that? And so we realized, but this is when, after we had left, that a member of parliament's role, according to the law, is oversight. But now we realized that we are now going back to where we were. Because this money now, when your role is now to oversight, it is now going back to the same government that was refusing you the money and the opportunity to develop your constituency.
So let me ask you this, because at the moment...
And that is where now, that's where the problem still is. We left it there, and I'm surprised that about 10, 15, 20 years later, the still problem is still,
actually, the CDF kit has really grown, because in 2003, 2004, every constituency out of the 210 then was receiving 6 million shillings.
6 million, yes.
Today we are talking about 161.4 million to 216.4 million for the 2024-2025 budget. So over time, there has been amendments to remove functions that would appear to be devolved functions to ensure that NGCDF is only taking care of national-looking programs.
Correct.
Including 40% of resources of CDF is allowed to be used on education programs which have been recognized in law as development projects. So the question is, what makes it so difficult for the national government, in this case the executive, to implement these programs that you have to require the involvement of the constituency structure?
First of all, some and the honourable members, let me tell you now what is happening on the ground. Because sasa mimi, I'm not a member of parliament, I'm not there.
Yep.
Sasa mimi mtu wa ground.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now what the ground is. The CDF has been politicized. And Wanjiku there has been inducted to know that there is something called CDF that you give me a check for my child's school fees.
Yep.
And so, anangojea aende pale kwa ofisi ya mheshimiwa apatiwe hiyo check. Aende apeleke shule, mtoto yake asome. So it is already a politicized, structured thing that even Wanjiku himself and my brother here, Richard
Onyonka.
I was with his father Zachary, a very brilliant man who was, he was a slow talker, but when Zachary stood up to speak in Parliament, we all kept quiet.
Yeah.
Because he was not a joker, and whatever came out from his mouth was really, but I'm telling him.
Does he get it from his father?
I'm telling him, I'm saying this, that the CDF structure has been politicized, and now Wanjiku, even if we go for the referendum, that Mheshimiwa Onyonka is talking about, Wanjiku, Mheshimiwa will vote for it.
All right.
Because let me finish.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you know I'm a ground man, and we have been told to listen to the ground.
Yes.
And I'm telling you what the ground is. that ground there with Wanjiku, when you go to that referendum,